I'm Gene Bulla. I was in the Air Force, not by choice, from 1960 to 64. Actually, how this started right out of high school, I had a couple of friends and we wanted to go in the service, but we wanted to go together. So I lived in Orlando and we went downtown to the post office. I wanted to go in the Marines. We went in and listened to the Marine spiel. A friend of mine went in and listened to the Navy spiel, and the other guy wanted to go in the Air Force spiel. So we couldn't decide on, which other, so we wanted to go together. So we stood out there and flipped a coin, odd man out. And the guy that went in the Air Force won. Never did like him much after that anyway. So we went in the Air Force together, and back then you didn't get choice, you got chance. And we took their test, and for some stupid reason, never figured out, I scored higher than these other two wonderful friends of mine. And I got to be a cop. And one of them went into communications, the other one went into aircraft care and maintenance. And we were in basic for 6 weeks, and one of them, Roy, he did not pass the medical examination. He went in, he had a little ringworm on his finger. So they sent him back. So it was just Bobby and I went in. And we spent basic training together, and it was kind of comical. He had a hard time learning how to march, believe it or not. This is kind of mind-boggling. When he wanted to walk, his right leg and right arm went together at the same time. We all just cracked up at this, So I'd get him off at the side for what little time we had and try to teach this clown how to march. I never let him forget that years after that. So anyway, he finally got his act together. Went through basic training. Then I was told I was going to police school. Just what I wanted. Made my day, So basic training was, police school was there in San Antonio at Lackland, and that took about 3 months. I went through that, and we all learned that we were going to be stationed overseas. So I put in for my 3 choices, and they gave me this terrible, terrible place called Bermuda, out in the Atlantic Ocean, So 19.2 miles long and 1.8 miles wide, if I remember right. And the name of that, they called it the Rock, because you felt like you were in jail or something, So anyway, I spent 2 years and 3 months there. My first son was born there. He had 3 birth certificates. Bermudian, it was British-owned Bermuda, Britain, and the U.S. And I guess the highlight of my whole stay there, if you want to call it a highlight, I had a top secret security clearance. There was only 3 of us in the police that had that. And they used to bring these C-124s, C-24s over, 124s, I forget. They had all the atom bombs, bringing them back from Europe. And they would stop there because Bermuda was really more of a gas station than anything else. And we'd have to guard them. You'd have to have 3 people guard them. But I had the luxury of guarding Jacqueline Kennedy's Arabian horse that was given to her by the Sheikh of Arabia. So I had to guard that horse on this airplane for 1 shift, So I guess that was the highlight of my stay. But I left there and I ended up going to Plainfield, Washington, and spent the remainder of that year at Plainfield. While I was in Bermuda, they had an extension university, and I'll go back to that. I figured I'm gonna stay in the service, I wanted to get a commission. So I had OCS. I applied to that, went to the University of Maryland, and I guess about 4 months later, the Air Force decided to terminate the OCS, and I fought trying to stay to get my commission, so I would retire. Unfortunately, I wasn't that lucky, so I decided I was getting out in 4 years. So I stayed in Plainfield, Washington, the last year, which was in Everett, just north of Seattle, and was discharged there and went back to Indiana. That's my short summary of my 4 years in the service.
My name's Nathan Kahn. I was in the Air Force. Went in May 16th of 1967 and got out in May 17th of 1971. And I went to basic at Lackland in San Antonio and went to tech school at Chanute Air Force Base and became a jet engine mechanic. and they sent me to Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. And we worked on jets that were sent to us from Southeast Asia, overhauled them, repaired them, and so forth. And my primary AFSC was working on the F-111, the TF-30 engines. And I did that for 4 years. I also worked aircraft ground. I studied the test cell and overhauled gas turbine units, which pressurized cabins in the bigger aircraft. And Nellis was an interesting base. We were just 7 miles from Las Vegas, so it was really tough though. It was hot out there in the summertime. The first year I was there, it got up to 125 in the shade, and we'd have to set our tools under the shade of the aircraft wing to keep them from getting so hot we couldn't touch them. And other than that, it was just routine, about like any other job I'd ever had. And, I always worked hard at everything I did, and I made my ranks and minimum time and grade. And they put me over the aircraft ground shop for temporarily. That was a tech sergeant's duty, but I was just a buck sergeant. But there was nobody around to do it, so they dumped it on me like they did everything else. And but it was interesting, and I'd do it all again if I had to, and maybe even go into another branch of the service, you know, because that's what it's about. I didn't wait to get drafted. I didn't want somebody telling me what I was going to do, and I already knew how to shoot a gun, so I didn't want to go in the Army. And I did want to learn a trade while I was in there. And I found out the 4 years I was in there, I hated turning wrenches. I really did. Anything else was fine, but I just got so sick of them. Jet engines has got a tremendous amount of bolts on them, and you wouldn't believe. I mean, and you had to sit there and hand tighten everything, and torque, and safety wire, you know, just everything. A lot more complicated than they appear to be. And anyway, that's about it. I broke a leg on Thanksgiving of '67. I was out camping, and we were climbing mountains and so forth, and I had a little fall and broke an ankle. And that was the biggest war injury I had, you know, back then. But that's about it. You know.
My name's Don Dreyfall. I enlisted in the Navy in September 1952. At that time, we were involved in the so-called police action in Korea, and I was going to save the world from communism. But by the time I got out of school and stuff, we were all done in Korea. I went to boot camp at Great Lakes, Illinois, and then they sent me to a aircraft mechanics school in Memphis, Tennessee. And after that, I was assigned to an overhaul and repair depot in Lakehurst, New Jersey. Spent a year or so there, and got assigned to an aircraft repair ship that was in the Mediterranean at the time. And we fooled around, cruised around the Mediterranean, had a good time. Brought it back to the States, decommissioned it, and put it in mothballs. And I got assigned to an attack squadron, VA-85, that was flying AD Sky Raiders, which was a single-engine, 3,000 horsepower attack bomber that actually carried the same bomb load of the World War II B-17, and it had nuclear delivery capabilities. After we got acclimated there at the squadron, and it was in Oceana, Virginia at the time, we deployed aboard the USS Intrepid for a 6-month cruise to the Med. I remember one time we were at sea, and one evening I went up on the flight deck, and there was all our planes were tied down at the aft end of the flight deck. Because we were prop planes, we were the last ones to go off and the last ones to come back aboard. And I saw all this activity and lights and stuff going on in the middle of our aircraft, so I went down to see what the heck is going on with our airplanes. And there's a whole crowd around there, around this one airplane, and they're loading what we called a shape. It was the same size and pretty much the same weight as a nuclear store. and they were practicing loading this thing on the airplane. So I watched them for a while, and I finally said, you know, there's a better way to do that. And they turned around and said, what are you doing here? This is a secret operation. I said, I've loaded those things before. There's a better way to do that. They ran me off. Oh, yeah. Actually had a great time. Got to see a lot of Europe, a lot of the great ports along the Mediterranean, including Cannes. I was there in Monaco right after Grace wed the prince. Got to see Monaco. Actually gambled in the casino at Monte Carlo. What I did is I put a couple francs in a slot machine. But we had a great time. I got discharged exactly 4 years from the day I enlisted. They got a full 4 years out of me. And came back. The Navy paid off because I went to school after that. Went to get my airframe and power plant license, and an instructor talked me into going for a degree, and got some great jobs out of that in the aviation industry. And I stayed with the Navy. They were my customer at Lockheed for many years. So it was a great experience for me. That's about it.
I'm William McPherson, lifetime resident of Paulding County. I'm here today in honor of my father, Arton McPherson, and my brother, Danny McPherson. And I too am a veteran. I was drafted in April 1st, 1962 till April 15th, 1964. I was tank driver in 7th Army, 37th Army 4th Armored Division, and came out as a specialist 4th class. Enjoyed my military service, and my father was awarded Bronze Star and Silver Star. My brother Danny was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and Bronze Star. Berlin Crisis did not issue medals, so I simply was awarded a Good Conduct Medal. And I'm a Masonic Lodge chaplain, and we work real close with American Legion chaplain, Brother Delmar Cook, and Brother Billy Cooper. Because usually when they have a member, he is also a member of the Masonic Lodge, and we travel together a lot, and we appreciate that a whole lot. I'm affiliated with Buchanan Baptist Church in Dallas for the past 35 years. And I once again appreciate the Legion for allowing us this privilege to be here. And we look forward to continuing this service. Thank you very much.